everyone. Tonight's film is the 1973 horror classic, The Exorcist. Ellen Bernstein, Linda Blair, and Jason Miller and Max von Sydow, directed by William Friedkin, based on a book by William Peter Blatty. Released December 26, 1973. Nice film for Christmas. Isn't it?
I love it.
It's about religion.
Yeah.
You know, it's got Christ in it, I suppose.
Yeah.
But I was watching this film this time, Robin, and I was thinking, it's 13 years after Psycho came out. When Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho came out, people were fainting in the aisles. It's causing hysteria. Much the same as they said with this.
Yeah.
And you think that when Psycho was being made, it was going backwards and forwards to the censors. And they was like, right, we need you to cut out that shot of the toilet flushing.
Yeah.
And now you've gone from that to this in 13 years. How did it get from there to this? Because there's scenes in this where you think, wow, 1973, it's no wonder people were shocked by it, is it?
It clearly threw people in a way that they hadn't been used to before.
Yeah.
You know, I've never seen this before, but I've seen spoofs of it.
Yeah.
And so I was watching it sort of almost tongue-in-cheek at times. I laughed at the demonistic bits and the fuck off, shove it up your ass and all this stuff. It kept making me laugh. But I can imagine, I'm sure at the time, it had a very different effect because people had not seen stuff like this.
The thing is, it's based on the book by William Peter Blatty. It's not trying to be a horror. It's a drama. It's a mystery. It's loads of things.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, he was the director.
Friedkin.
He was a documentary director as well, wasn't he?
He was. That's how he started his career. Yeah.
Yeah. So they kind of came from that sort of element, wasn't it? And it was subtly done.
Yeah.
Gets in your head.
It's more psychological, isn't it? It's a mother whose daughter, you know, it's like having an illness, but something that they can't pin it down. I mean, that's the thing as well. They looking at it psychologically, all the specialists and that coming in. And
absolutely. Well, there's a bit that was cut out of the first film with the priest sitting on the stairs. Because they did the Blu-ray edition, didn't they? And they put the extra bits back in. And he says, why is this happening? Or why did they choose the girl or something? And he said it's about the despair. And that's really important because then you start to think about it slightly differently, I thought. Because you then start to sort of put yourself more into the character's position.
Yes.
I think that was the problem for me when I watched it, is I didn't really care much for any of the characters. The priest was a priest. The mum was a actress who kind of was a bit well-to-do, but then with that one little remark about it's about the despair element, that kind of made me think about it differently. And that's probably where the book's better, because it would take you more into the despair of the parent, the despair of the priest, and I didn't get that from the film.
The book as well, what really works well in the book is that you got the detective, Kinderman, who's a great character, and in the book he's even greater. He seems like this fumbling idiot. Yeah. But then you realise he's tripping people up without them realising to get the answers he wants. But the servant, Carl, he is like the prime suspect. Basically, you know, he's got the motive because the bloke didn't like him. Yeah. He sneaks off as well when the murder happens and his time isn't accounted for. When Reagan makes the bird at the beginning for her mum and the detective comes by to the house in the book, he's looking at the bird and he scrapes some of the paint off of the bird. Yeah. And then goes back and examines it, and it's the paint that was found at the desecrated altars at the Black Mass. Right. So it all like links to the house and basically to Carl. So you've got that as you're reading the book. You're like, is it him?
Wish I'd read the book beforehand, I think.
You've got to make a film more concise.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And that's clearly why they did it. There's that spider walk down the stairs as well. Did you see that?
I've seen the deleted scenes. I've never seen it cut into the film.
No, I likewise. But I didn't feel massively invested in the characters, but I think maybe reading The Exorcist, the book, would fill those gaps in for me.
Yeah, because with the priest as well, I mean, it is the priest's story, really. More so in the book, it's all about his redemption. He's lost faith, and it's him finding that faith. And, you know, so much so that when she's like, comes to him for an exorcism, he's like, well, it can't be, because that sort of thing isn't real. You know, and he's the one who can't believe it. And he's looking for the evidence.
No, that's not a thing,
no. To go right back to the start of the film, there's no big credit sequence. It starts in Iraq with Max von Sydow. Yeah. And he finds the demonic artifact. But Max von Sydow, that makeup, it's pretty impressive because I was convinced that's what he looked like.
Yeah.
I didn't realise he was in his 40s at that time and they'd made him up.
He was a lot younger, wasn't he? And they made him look a lot older. Yeah, brilliant.
And in the book, it sort of explains that he's had a premonition, whereas you've got to make that judgment yourself. But I just love the way all the sounds sort of fade in and build up and then cut out. And that opening, like, Iraq sequence, I just thought was...
It was good.
Yeah, really well done.
It was really well done, but it was really clever as well because the minute it goes, you sort of drop it. It has no relevance until he comes back later, and then the connections are made.
Yeah, because he is the exorcist.
What an excellent day for an exorcism!
Linda Blair, absolute props to her and I know she's under makeup again. And Dick Smith's makeup, it is pretty cool. And when you see, I don't know if you've seen any of the documentaries.
No, I picked up a few bits. I saw a bit where the director was worried about obviously having a child doing a lot of the things within this. And he interviewed something like 500 girls. And then she came along and she said, I know about this story because it's about a girl who's possessed by a demon. And then she masturbates with a crucifix. And her mum was laughing and he thought, oh, she'll be all right. It's sad.
Yeah, I don't know that that's true. You know, she's in an interview saying all she had was a crucifix and they had a tub and a sponge, a bloody sponge that she had to just keep stabbing. And she said she didn't know what she was doing.
I saw a little bit of the way they did a lot of the filming around that. And it did look like actually they'd done a good job of protecting her from perhaps a lot of actually what was going on.
There was another girl, wasn't there, that they used, like an older woman who's like small like a child, who they used for a lot of the scenes. But they didn't use that small woman when they put Linda Blair in the rig and was thrashing her about in the bed.
Yes.
And the same with Ellen Bernstein when Reagan slaps her and they yank her across the room.
Yeah, she falls back against the wall, doesn't she? But
there's the Fear of God documentary, Mark Kermode's love story to The Exorcist. Ellen Bernstein's interviewed in that and she says, I said to Billy, look, you can't do it this hard. You're going to hurt me. This could cause me serious damage. And he said, he turned to the stunt guy, the coordinator, and he said, okay, don't do it so hard next time. And she said, as she turned around, she could just sense them exchanging looks. And the stunt guy in the same documentary says, and Billy said, just give it to her.
Yeah. I mean, again, maybe that's come from his Friedkin's documentary element, where he liked the realism.
He's no good at waiting for actors to get to the point that he wants them.
Yeah, but he slapped the priest, didn't he?
He did slap the priest.
That's what made his hand shake so much.
He had shotguns hidden all around the set that he'd fire into people's ears. Yeah, crazy guy.
Mental. Necessary? You know, I mean, you wouldn't get away with it now, would you?
No, but
there's definitely always that extra bit of interest, isn't there? Once you've seen the film, to dig around it and find out what the stories were. And this one had quite a long production time, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So a few things happened in that time. People passed away, family members and stuff like that. Wasn't anyone on the set, was there?
Well, different people saying different things.
Yeah.
Ellen Bernstein, who's just like, oh my God, everyone died. Whereas someone else says a couple of people died. The stunt bloke goes, people were dying. And it wasn't just like freak accidents or anything. It was just be like the cameraman would just drop down dead. There was fires and things, but they do like to...
Yeah, but that works perfectly along the lines of the whole film set. It was all cursed. Even the making of the film was cursed because that's got people talking about it. And you know, oh my God, it must be bad, and adds to it, doesn't it?
Yeah, Jason Miller said that one priest come up to him, an elderly priest, and took off his like St. Christopher medallion and like give it to him and said, you have that and that'll protect you, because whenever you do anything about the devil, making out how tricky he is, you need protection. Jason Miller took it, wore it, thank you, Father. And he said the next time he's like walking through the catacombs of this church, and then he walked past and there's like a casket, and he's like, oh, is that a casket? And then he looks back and there's the priest that gave him the necklace, like dead.
That was an old priest.
Jack McGowan, who played the director, Burke, as well, he passed away just after he'd finished filming.
But that happens with a lot of films, doesn't it?
Some of the set burnt down.
Yeah.
But I mean, that sort of thing happens. I mean, like Star Wars.
Yeah.
They never have any rain in Tunisia. The day before they filmed Star Wars, flash floods wiped the entire set away.
I have to say that I found it slightly interesting that old Mr. Blatty, the writer, had written comedies previously.
Yeah, he was a comedy writer.
And I felt that the demon, that demonic voice and fuck off, shove it up your ass and all that stuff, I just couldn't help but laugh when I heard it. I don't know if that's the child in me. Yes, it is the child in me. But I mean, some of those lines... Cause
your mother cooks socks in Hull, isn't it?
I just thought some of them, the timing of them were just absolutely brilliant. There's a bit where the priest is, I cast you out, you unclean spirit. And he's all like that. He goes, shove it up your ass, you faggot. That's comical. I mean, the timing is just immense. And it's the voice as well.
Yeah, because they used a woman to do the voice, an old actress called Mercedes McCambridge. She was just chain smoking and drinking lots of whiskey, and she said she had to have her priest there to sort of get her through it so she didn't get back on the bottle. She was doing it for art.
But it's just the brilliance of the priests. But God is my helper. The Lord sustains my life. Your mother sucks cocks in hell. It's like... it's just
I must say
timing.
That, listening to the audiobook, it's read by William Peter Blatty.
Yeah.
And he has got such a great voice to read this book. And when he does the discussion between Karras and the demon, it's just brilliant. Really good back and forth. Because obviously, like you say, he came from a comedy background.
Yeah.
He was writing for Blake Edwards.
Right.
They was making a film version of Peter Gunn, and he'd helped write the script. Basically, Friedkin was brought into this interview. The producer and Blake Edwards, and then the writer was all there. Friedkin read through the script and said, no, that's crap. The biggest piece of shit script I've ever read, and just slated it completely. Blake Edwards was horrified that someone would tell him that to his face, kicked him out. But then William Peter Blatty ran out after him and said, I just want to tell you that I wrote that script. And he's like, yeah, well, it was shit. And he's like, I know it was shit. He said, but I want to just say I really appreciate your honesty. Blatant honesty. And then years later when I think it was Peter Blatty's agent said, look, when are you going to write something really good, something worth writing? Because you're just doing all these comedy shit. And he had this story in his head from his university days of The Exorcist, because it was based on a newspaper article of a true account of an exorcism back in the 40s or 50s. And it was in his head all the time. And he wrote the book. And he thought, if this makes a film, I know who I want to direct it. And the studios didn't want Friedkin. He's a documentary director, and probably because of his attitude as well. But then when The French Connection came out, all of a sudden, it's won the Oscar.
He's the man of the moment.
William Friedkin is the man of the moment. Let's get him in.
Do you know, bits we haven't talked about when they were doing all the tests on the girl and the machinery and the stuff that they had back then. That was fascinating. Massive great machines whirring and clunking around and taking the blood out of her neck, and that was a really interesting insight into what the medical setup was back then.
And that was a thing that when people were watching it in the cinema and fainting and being sick, apparently it was the bit where they put into her artery.
That would have been quite alarming, I would imagine, back then. I shouldn't imagine there was too much of that going on in films. Let's get some blood out of a kid's neck.
No, and it looked real, and I don't know if it was real or not.
Jesus, I tell you what, judging by some of the stories we've already discussed this evening, I wouldn't be surprised if he did sever a neck to get a bit of real blood.
Yeah.
I didn't grasp how the demon caught hold of her.
She found a Ouija
board. So she accessed the demon via the
the original case as well that the book was based on. The boy used to play with a Ouija board on his own.
Right, okay.
And I mean, the Ouija board over in America is Hasbro that make the Ouija board.
Yeah, I was going to say. Because the mum's like, where did you find it? Oh, I found it in the cupboard. Oh, yeah, I've been playing. Oh, let's play together.
You can buy it in game shops over there. It's on all the shelves.
That is weird when you think about how kind of religious America is. And
America's a strange place, isn't
it just?
So Friedkin describes this film as a mystery of faith, and Blatty says it's a supernatural detective story. And this is what it goes into in the book. It's suggestive, and because they're looking at it psychologically.
Yeah, I get that.
Father Karras is looking at it psychologically. He doesn't believe it. He doesn't believe it. And even when the exorcist, Merrin, turns up, and he's like, oh, there's only one demon, Merrin says.
Yeah.
Because he's been there. He knows the demon. All the way through, Karras is like, if they're doing this, it's only to convince her. And it's the psychiatrists and like the doctors who suggest it. You need that and that, or like That's how you can trick her mind into thinking that she's got rid of these.
Taking it out of her.
But like, at not one point does he go, believe that it's good and evil, heaven and hell. And another thing, like the special effects, they had to build technologies to get the effects, and not just the effects, and like the dragging of furniture across the floor or whatever, but they built the studio. They basically built in a refrigerator, didn't they? And they dragged it down to like 30 or 40 degrees under, minus, to get it that cold. And they're all in there in like winter expedition
ski suits,
and Linda Blair's lying there in her nightie, but like with the scene with the swivel head as well. Peter Blatty, in the book, she only goes round like 180 degrees.
Yeah.
And her mum sees it and she's like, doesn't believe if she's seen it or not. It's like, what did that happen? Whereas Friedkin's like, oh no, it's got to go all the way around, which is just impossible. It's ridiculous.
She'd have been dead there, wouldn't she? Her neck would have been done for.
And Blatty was always like, no. And it's one of those scenes that people remembered. But when you look at it, it does look too neat a swivel.
Yeah.
And it's like,
again,
it almost sounds like a lid.
Yeah.
Of a jar.
That's the effects. I guess that's part and parcel of where you were in terms of effects and stuff at the time. Some of it was good, but some of it looked a bit clunky.
But they created this creature to do that with the head, and then they filmed it, and they was like, there's something not right about it. And then they all realised there's no breath coming out of the creature. Everyone else is breathing mist. So then they went back and put something
push air
breathe
out.
Hot vapour out.
That's clever.
And then also there's a scene where the priest, they call him when the writing comes up on her belly.
Oh, was it say help me or get...
Help me, yeah. And in the book, it's clearly stated it's Reagan's handwriting.
Right. I thought the bit where she comes out, she says, you're going to die up there, and then pisses all over the floor. I like the way they all went, stop the party, stop the fun. It was just their reaction was a little bit like...
Well, she says it to the astronaut, doesn't she? You're going to die up there.
How dare she?
Another little interesting fact. This film was edited at 666 Fifth Avenue.
Oh, you see again, it's 666. Imagine that.
Yeah, anything else you think to discuss here, Robin?
Overall, if someone said, I've never seen it, I'd say, watch that. It is a good film. Like I said right at the start, it's the groundbreaking element to it. People would do it. They were doing things there that hadn't been done before.
And new themes,
films
that hadn't been
new extremes, trying to push boundaries within the limits of what they were permitted to do. And they clearly pushed them in this film. I joke about the demonic language and stuff, but I should imagine at that time.
Oh, it was just completely shocking.
It was completely inappropriate, sort of and The Exorcist was kind of at a time where perhaps people hadn't really spent a lot of time imagining it. That's the strength of it. That's the bit that's really hard to kind of grasp now, genuinely not being able to watch a film because you weren't old enough to get into the cinema to see it. You've got kids now watching 18
but
films
also
whenever they want.
Only being able to watch these films in the cinema.
Yeah.
To watch The Exorcist in a room, dark, on a big screen with loud sound. That's the way to watch it, isn't it?
Yeah. Things like The Shining as well. Stick that on a big screen. And stick that up your ass!